Hi.
You're on.
Quite the day, huh?
Hi, Michelle. How are you?
Great, Cynthia. How are you doing today?
I'm great. What brings you here?
Well, you have quite the beautiful property.
Thank you. We worked hard on it. That's quite the history.
Yes, it's obvious to tell. Sorry, I just moved my screen.
It's okay.
Now I'm back.
Looking to stay here?
Oh, because, right, you own this narrative. Actually, I was hoping to speak. Are you the owner, actually, Cynthia? I'm not sure if you are.
I am the owner, though my wife is important in the running of the inn and is an equal partner.
I see. So what I've heard through the grapevine is that you might be looking to sell this property at some point in the near future. And I wanted to at least introduce myself because if we come to the point in a conversation, if you're looking for somebody to be able to continue on the tradition that you've begun here, I think that we would be really great people to be able to take over the establishment and to really move forward with the foundation that you've set for this place.
So who is we? Are you representing a larger company, or are you looking to buy it privately?
No, I do represent a larger company. We're known as the Swansea Group. Have you heard of our other establishments?
I don't believe I have.
Okay, well, the Swansea Group, and goodness, the Swansea Group actually owns about 20 different bed and breakfasts in about 11 destinations, and we have a focus on a very European feel and having a luxury setting so that, well, let me ask if you're also familiar with a list called Relais and Chateau. It's very similar to the type of style that your B&B is set in, so I thought perhaps you'd heard of that.
It rings a dim bell, but yes, probably. Yes.
Right.
So let me stop you and ask you what would be absolutely a crucial question. This is an inn of historical relevance, and as you can see, there's a historic plaque on it. We've worked really hard to maintain that. Because you're a larger group, would you be tearing it down, or? Oh
no, not at all. Actually, the whole focus of our group is to maintain the historic heritage, and that's part of the reason why we're interested in your property. To begin with, and why we wanted to be one of the first people to have a conversation with you. Myrtle Beach is known for its cultural heritage, and this Georgian home is obviously of prime value in that area. So what we would do is maintain what's here. I mean, part of the reason we're interested is because of the incredible interior structures and these marble floors. And honestly, a lot of what our group does is to invest in the decor that you have. So all the furniture that you have laid out in here, it's very much in the style and what we try to preserve for our other locations. So we're not interested in the property for like a high-rise luxury hotel sort of chain. It's not like that. It's all about bed and breakfast and being able to have true luxury, but in a very cozy, intimate atmosphere.
And apparently you have walked around the property because you're referencing what's inside of it. Have you also noticed the rose garden area?
Yes,
that we recently
that is
built?
lovely. Yeah, I did come by here for lunch a couple of weeks ago just to see what the property was really like. And I know that it's November now and it's not exactly the high season, but the rose gardens, the new facility is incredible. I think it makes perfect sense that in an area like this here on the beach and so close, that you would have an event space that could serve a wide variety, really, of all sorts of receptions or weddings or whatever. It's a beautiful place, the wooded atmosphere, all the land and the acres that you have surrounding you.
Mm-hmm.
It's lovely that it's so close, so that it's so close to the beach that it's almost within walking distance.
Mm-hmm.
But you're also not very far away from the city, so it's really the best of both worlds.
It really is. This is it's a great area, and the Rose Garden was developed specifically to, it's relatively new and it's been doing extremely well. And one of the goals for it is business meetings and seminars, which is strictly to bring in business to bridge that the time of year right now, November, is to be able to bring in corporate parties or, annual meetings where people from the East Coast, where it's so cold, want to come down, in different kinds of months. And that's an area of the business that's going to grow exponentially over the next few years.
Right. It makes perfect sense. In my former profession, I worked for higher education institutions, and we often had that question about what do we do during the season when the students aren't there. So for us, obviously, it was summertime, and we were always looking to maximize the space utilization, right? So over the course of time, we would add air conditioning and that sort of thing to the residence halls, and that way we could sell them for conference and event space during the summer. It's like if you're not utilizing the space that you have, then it's basically like putting air conditioning into an open building. It's just
one of the joys of down here. I don't know if you're from here, but one of the joys down here is that we don't rely so much on air conditioning. We can throw up windows, get the wonderful beach air. It's really one of the reasons that people like it is the natural setting. So, that's something that we can, on the really, really, really hot times, we could, air conditioning might be nice, but notice that we are booked all through that time at much higher rates, even without the air conditioning. It really is a joy down here. Most of us try to live without it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that was just one example. It's obvious that you have the sea breeze, so it seems like you probably have a constant airflow through here.
Right.
I'm actually from the Northeast. I have not spent much time in South Carolina. But my family did go to Maine during the summers, and there's something special about the salt in the air.
Yes.
I would say it's nice to smell the woods. You have those in your backyard, but you have the salt breeze. It's really a lovely place.
Right. Yes. I'm glad that you appreciate it. So are you looking to actively buy this, or are we talking down the road and you're just kind of gathering?
Well, I wanted to approach you and see how open you were to having the conversations. I would be more than happy to have an active conversation with you, so to speak, if you were open to that today. It was sort of hit or miss that we were going to connect, so just wanted to put it out there.
Well, I'm always open to hear offers. We do know what we have invested in it. We have, other properties when they come up for sale. Of course, it's a community where we all pay attention to what everybody else is doing, and there are these beautiful pieces of furniture in here. So, I'm not sure what really your complete criteria is, but, of course, throw out a number. What the heck? We can always chat over some iced tea on the porch.
Right. Well, I understand that you are, what I believe I understand is that you're still in the preliminary thought process about when you might sell. And so I'm not sure if you had thought much about an asking range. Is there, or what your plans might be? Are you hoping to move on and look for a different B&B? What sort of? We're definitely looking. We've been doing this for a number of years. It's, as you know, because you are in the trade, it's very, very stressful. And, there comes a time in your life when you start to say, is this really what I want to do? Or do I want to move on? But there are always constraints. None of us can just walk away and make quick, fun choices for ourselves without considering our other obligations. Sure.
And so, we talk about our plans, and some of them are a little firmer than others. But again, it really depends on the money.
Right. And so it sounds like adding the Rose Garden, the facility, might have been one of the goals that you finally achieved. And now is a good time to be able to move on, knowing that that's in place.
Yes, it is. I mean, absolutely. That was on our sort of 5-year, 10-year plan. We've done that. We've done that strictly to bring in more income. And while it was stressful to build it, hopefully we're going to reap the benefits of it. It's been an extraordinary first season. Mm-hmm. So we're really hoping to market that and be able to bring in more. Mm-hmm. So that, when we do decide to leave, we are leaving on solid financial grounds.
Sure.
So, and you're a large corporation. I don't know if you can make a decision today. Maybe you can. Maybe you have a cashier's check in your back pocket.
Yeah, I mean, we're not, just to clarify, because I want to really focus on the integrity of the structure and the heritage that we're looking to really preserve. We're a larger corporation, but we're really just we're a group. You know, we have not sort of gargantuan, and I wanted to make that point because I think what this property has is a very special, unique feel and cultural heritage, and that's not going to be lost. So maybe it's clear, but I really just wanted to emphasize that because, you know, you can go up and down the eastern seaboard, and everywhere there's a beach, there's high rises, and there's
Yes.
a very different modern culture, and that's really not what we're into. In fact, one of the reasons why we were very interested in your property was because, as I mentioned, you do have the furniture in here, and that is very much something that we look for in the style for the B&Bs that we have. So it's very consistent. And I asked a little bit about your future plans because I wasn't sure if you would consider, or if you had considered staying on in any sort of relational capacity to the B&B. Oftentimes we've worked with other owners to maintain sort of concierge duties. I mean, you know this area better than we do as a group. And so I wasn't sure if you wanted to sell and be out of the business entirely, or if you wanted to have some tie if you were staying in the area.
Well, that's an interesting point because, you know, to let go of it means we also let go of our home because this is obviously where we live. I don't think concierge service necessarily telling people where to, you know, make a dinner reservation. We have somebody who works for us who does that, who's fairly young and very vivacious as opposed to old folks. You know, so probably not concierge, but I do love the furniture. That's really sort of where my passion started, and that's why there's such a collection in the house. And that's, I have a background in that. And, you know, so as I think about my future, it's how do I bring that back into my life? How do I bring the things that make me the most happy back into my life? And, you know, the curation of the pieces like that I find very, very interesting, and have thought about pursuing that kind of a sort of an art background. And I don't know how you deal with that in your company, but or if your other hotels and lodging it has that need, but you know, that might be something interesting to pursue, which I just throw that out there.
Yeah, no, I would like you to maybe tell me a little bit more about what your background is and what you might want to do or consider in the future. You want to take a minute to pull together a few thoughts, because we do, as I mentioned, that we have this style in many of our other bed and breakfasts, and we would really like to have like a steady consultant who can help us with the interior design. Is interior design what you did, or was it furniture purchasing?
It was, I believe, furniture design. What things said. I have a background in collecting, designing furniture, and as I say, curation is the word I seem to be stuck on here. You know, reproduction pieces do not appeal to me. You know, it's authenticity, it's antiquity, it's history, very much as the B&B is. And by the sounds of things, your company does not just put in reproduction pieces. It sounds like there's an authenticity to what you're doing. And I don't know how you manage that. That's an interesting question for you. I've never thought about how a larger, you know, even though you're not corporate, a larger entity deals with that. You know, how do they locate and choose appropriate pieces? I wonder how that's done.
Right. Well, for us, what we've done is we do, of course, as a you know, I wouldn't call us a development group, but as a real estate group, we do have interior designers that we work with from time to time, and they're definitely familiar with the Euro design. That said, the way that you have fit out the space that you have here in the B&B is, you know, I'll say it again, it's very much in line with what we were looking for. So we have been talking about, amongst all of us in the company who sort of acquire and then fit out the spaces, what we would be looking for the background for somebody if we were to add on
Okay.
to our interiors department. And really it's somebody with basically what you've described, somebody who's familiar with the industry, but who can look at a piece from across a room and know, yes, that's authentic, or no, it's not. So I think, you know, we could have definitely, I don't have too many conversations at the same time. I'm known for doing that. But if you were looking to stay involved in a B&B sort of outfit, meaning,
well, you know, I don't want to change the sheets or cook the meals anymore, but
right.
or even keep the books. You know, I've never thought about a position like that. So this is such an interesting piece of the conversation.
Well, I can tell you,
like to, you know, to think about that. That's kind of an interesting idea. The reason I brought up, you know, that we'd be leaving our home is because one of the things that we've talked about as we approach, you know, formalizing the process of selling it, is that we wondered if we could work with whoever bought it to, you know, after maybe some travel, be able to come back and have a room available to us, you know, with 15, 30 days notice as the previous owners, so that we had a place to come to for 6 months or so, free. You know, we don't want to have to, you know, that would be the point, is a cost saving, until we get reestablished in a new home. And as I say, that's something that we've talked about is, you know, we're really working with the new owners to give us a grace period around that. And I don't know, again, you're a company, so I don't know whether or not that's something that we can negotiate. Mm-hmm. And again, you know, we haven't talked about price yet. So this may be an academic, you know, we're putting all the pieces on the table. And maybe I'm getting ahead of myself in what we really want. But, you know,
I think it's important in the B&B market. I mean, what my experience has been, the people who own B&Bs, you know, they're in it for a lot of reasons. They're in it because they love it. They love the people. They love the heritage. They love the houses they're in. They love helping other people have the amazing experience that they do in the B&Bs. It's very different than hoteling, and just like a very different sort of, it's a different atmosphere for staying. You know, it's a very personal investment. So I personally am glad that you've shared a lot of these different topics, because I feel like it's buying a B&B, buying and selling a B&B to me is like that halfway step between buying and selling somebody's home and buying and selling somebody's hotel business. You know,
for us, it starts with it, you know, being our home. And so that's why it's so personal for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So do you want to, you know, go and consult with your folks and talk about that? Or, you know, again, it's not really on the market yet, so I'm not quite sure what to do with all this information.
Well, I asked a while ago, and I'm not sure if you've talked with your partner and or any real estate agents about what your asking range might be, because like you said, we might be having a really lovely academic conversation that, you know,
right,
doesn't fit either of our needs.
Well,
the range that you're looking for?
Well, we have certainly, you know, this is a pretty tight-knit community. Again, you know, the non-Hilton of us stick together, and we talk about it. And we look at the square footage, you know, costs and upkeep and all that kind of. So, yeah, I mean, we've batted around some, especially based on the fact that it's a positive cash flow business with absolutely room for growth. As I've said to you, the Rose Garden, you know, we're really pushing that very hard. And you know, we also know what we have to cover, just like buying and selling a house. You know what your mortgage is, and you know, we're looking at between, you know, 1.3 and 1 million is the place that we would start. Mm-hmm. And you know, again, it's not on the market, so that number's a little flexible. But we really do have a lot of things we have to cover. Mm-hmm. So
by cover, you mean sort of debt service that you want to be able to pay?
Not just debt service, but you know, our investment in our future is the way, you know, you kind of give yourself a clean slate, and then you have some money in your pocket, because you can't start with zero. And right, so, you know, we absolutely have to do that. We have to look ahead. Right. So, you know, I'll be honest with you, we're definitely open, mm-hmm, but it depends on the number.
Right. Okay. Well, I think that we do have a few things that we can continue to talk about if you have the time.
Sure.
So I think that there is the possibility of you and your partner staying in the future. And if you were to stay in the future, that would be at, it sounds like, lower no cost with certain advanced notice. That's how I'll say it.
Mm-hmm.
There's the potential, if you are interested, after you sort of mull over the idea, if you maybe wanted to almost become an employee of the Swansea group, which is the group that I'm part of, and think about that interior design profession as sort of maybe one of your best career moves that you could make. If you mentioned earlier, that's really what makes you happy. And so if you think about transitioning in the B&B world to be more of a consultant versus the owner, there's that possibility.
So is that something that you think that you have the power to tell me that's an actual option, or are we talking theoretical?
No, I think that we could continue to flesh that idea out. I know that I've spoken with my partner about, my business partner about what that would look like in the interiors department moving forward. So I have sort of an outline of a bit of a position description, if you will, and really it entails a little bit more detail about what you were mentioning was your background. So I think we could probably talk about that one a little bit more.
Okay. And obviously and we really are just jumping ahead. So it's not a conversation I was expecting to have today, but obviously I'd have to know approximately what the salary on that would be.
Sure.
Because if it's going to offset anything, I have to know what the value of it is.
Absolutely. So I think we have sort of the lodging, if you think about it, staying roughly 6 months out of the year.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you had mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And you have potential for future consulting work, if you think about working with Swansea Group as an interior designing. And then there is the purchase price of the property itself. And I do have also some authority to negotiate some prices with you here today.
Okay.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you about was, hold on, I need to refer back to my notes for just a second. So when I was here previously, here meaning when I had lunch, I mentioned that I had come by a couple weeks ago, months ago, whatever it was. I had asked for just a quick tour of the kitchen area because
Staff let you in the kitchen area?
Well, what I did was actually some of the best food that I've ever had, and so it was compliments to the chef, and I wondered if I could go back and just say thank you to them personally. And so they let me peek into the kitchen. Georgian B&Bs like this are some of my favorites, and I'll tell you that sometimes owners, when they decide to really kind of ramp up the event was the word I was looking for, the event capacity on an adjacent property like the facility, the Rose Garden facility that you have constructed, they get a little bit jumpy about what they need to do in the home itself. And so I wanted to kind of take a peek at the kitchen while I was giving my compliments to the chef, because there's often some really great integrity involved in the initial plumbing. And there's the tile work that often comes with it. You have all the European fixtures and the other spaces in the B&B. And I was really curious, as well as complimentary to your staff, about what you had for fixtures in the kitchen. So I know that there need to be a little bit of upgrade work to some of the utilities. Everything is in really decent shape. It's just, the building is getting a little bit older, I'm sure. I don't know exactly when it was constructed. Do you know?
Yeah. Um, it was built in 1909, actually. I have to look it up. Couldn't remember if it was 10 or 9.
Right.
It was built in 1909 as a former parsonage.
Oh, it was a parsonage. I wasn't sure.
A parsonage is the house that's usually attached to a church, which is where the. Did you ask me what it was?
No, I said I wasn't sure what the original use was. Yeah,
yes,
I'm familiar with what a parsonage is. Yeah.
It's a pretty grand parsonage for a minister, but
well, you know, depending on the actual faith, some structures can be a little bit more ornate than others.
True, very true.
I've seen the rectory in my parish growing up. Anyway,
the intent of you know, if we were to stay, which, as I say, it's becoming a little bit burdensome, would be to offset kitchen expenses with the increase in the businesses coming off of the Rose Garden. So I think what you were saying was that you felt that the kitchen needed investing in. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah, some of the utilities, some of the like the plumbing in particular, and usually in any structure like this, unless you know of any major renovations that have been done to the heating system or the actual plumbing system, they usually need to be brought up to code, if nothing else. It's often a case where if you do sort of smaller renovations just to make sure that everything is nice for your guests, that's one thing. But if you kind of touch too much of a percentage of the overall facility, you have to do everything. And so what we've noticed in these older B&B homes is that when there is a sale and the code officials will come in, because everything has to be up to code before the new owner is allowed to have guest stay, they'll flag that. But for you,
I can guarantee you that right now it's up to code, unless you were going to add you know, the number of diners that would be coming through or something like that. But right now it's up to code. We have all our books, and that would certainly be, there's no way I would even pretend that it was up to code if it wasn't.
Sure.
We have all our certificates. But again, if you were going to increase it, that might change what has to happen in that kitchen. You know, and my assumption is, because we're clearly, you know, I want to sell it, you want to buy it. So my assumption is that what we're doing is, you know, we're talking about the positions that we're taking, you know, where I see the value and you don't, which is what we're supposed to be doing. We're doing our jobs. You know, we can be creative about that. I think we can, you know, perhaps a way of offsetting your costs to the kitchen, or offsetting, you know, the number that I probably I'm going to negotiate with you, would be something along the lines of perhaps, and again, just an idea, 20% of the bookings from the Rose Garden. So that would be a way of continuously putting some money in my pocket as I walk away from it, but it would also be an incentive for you to be able to build that business and offset the extra business and the kitchen costs. So, you know, maybe that's, you know, I'm being a small business owner, I get pretty creative about how I deal with my client, you know, my customers. You know, well, if they want a larger room, perhaps we can, you know, they don't eat dinner every night or something. You know, we do those kinds of things because we're very one-on-one. And, you know, that was my concern in the beginning, you know, how corporate were you? Because you all need to go in certain rules. You know, so as we've been thinking about it, we've been going, well, you know, what could we do? How can we make this work for everybody? And, you know, the room idea, the 20% of bookings for a year or two, you know, things like that help us be able to walk away and know that we still have the money that we need to live on and to, you know, continue to pay just the regular bills that we have, things like college tuition. So, you know, I don't know if you can be that flexible, but, you know, that's the kind of the way I live my life, is creatively. If you have other ideas, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, that's an interesting proposition about the 20% of the future room sales or the event sales for the Rose Garden. There are all kinds of solutions that we can come to aren't there, with the
Yeah.
bed and breakfast.
Especially when we're dealing one-on-one and it's small business. You know, I don't know how wedded you are to buying this particular property. I know how wedded we are to making sure that we get money that we need out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I've thrown a number out there.
10-minute notice.
I know. We both lean in. So, you know, I have an event that I have to start to go take care of. So I've got about 10 more minutes that I can chat. You know, if you have a number, I would love to hear it and see if we can wrap this up.
Yeah. So I think what we were thinking about was, I really like this. We really are very interested in the property, and I really like the concept that we could sort of expand the pie and think about how we can both really try to achieve what it is that we want for our goals. I feel like all of our goals on both sides are very aligned, so I feel like there's a lot of room for opportunity here. When we have worked with interior design consultants in the past, what I was thinking about was, if you were willing to consider working with the Swansea Group, what we would do is bring you on more of as an employee. What we like to do when we purchase new properties is not necessarily to have ongoing contracts with the previous owners, but really to roll them into our family and become an actual employee. So in terms of your idea about 20% of the future event sales, that's not something that we have a precedent for, and I'm not sure how comfortable we would be with that. That said, if you were to work sort of as an interior designer consultant for us, I think that we could more than cover that for your salary if you were willing to work, I don't know, say even 3/4 time. Does that make sense?
It does. It depends on the base salary for that, because again, you know, we're trying to get to a bottom line, and you know, that's why I kind of throw out the variety of options. You know, it's like Chinese food ordering.
So if you were to, would you, you know, just to, so that I can throw a number out on the table around the interior design consultancy, do you think that you'd be willing to work about 3/4 time?
I would probably be willing to work really full time if that were the case. Given, you know, I think it depends on. I mean, all those things in life, you know, it depends on travel and all of that. But I have no problem with working all the time. I will tell you that I am planning on taking some time off for a very specific travel plan. So it would have to be after that.
That sounds fine with me. I mean, you're coming off of this really great endeavor, and I wouldn't want to roll you into anything and overwhelm you right away anyway. That's
great. Great. I appreciate that flexibility and the understanding of the business. You know, so I would be looking for a full-time salary, and then, as I say, the monthly place to live. You know, the 20% of bookings. You know, that was just a way for you to really play with your numbers.
Mm-hmm. I understand.
And you know, because all of this rolls into one great big number.
Right.
And exactly how we slice that up is you know, kind of up to us in the final end. But again, I've given you a number of about 1.1, and I haven't heard anything yet that tells me if we're even close.
I think that we are. I think what I'd like to suggest is, well, actually, could I ask you one more question? So when you are thinking about coming, you and your partners coming and staying, I have two questions, actually. The first would be, do you think that you would stay for 6 months consecutively? If so, what season? And the second question is, if not consecutively, you mentioned sort of a 14-day window, like a notice.
Well, you know, I'm in theory being flexible about, you know, knowing that you have bookings and things like that. And there's only 9 rooms. So I'm trying to be sensitive to that. And that perhaps was why I was throwing out the 20% of bookings, because that would also be cash in our pockets, so to speak. Mm-hmm. In which case I wouldn't be impacting how you stay.
Right.
You know, I have a monthly amount that I have to meet in terms of my bills that will continue whether I'm actively working or not. And I am trying to reduce my stress. And, piling on bills doesn't reduce my stress. So,
Right.
So in a sense, that staying there is part and parcel with the 20% of bookings. I know how much we're anticipating per year for that. So I'm looking for those two numbers to sort of help offset some of the money that I need.
Okay, I'm not sure that I understand that. So could you tell me how the 20% of the bookings are part and parcel with you being able to stay in the inn? Because
maybe one or the other. I'm looking because if I'm staying at the inn, and I would be looking for a consistent room, which was part of your question. I'm sorry I didn't answer that before.
Yeah.
You were looking. I would be looking to stay there consistently for at least 6 months as we return. 5-minute notice. As we return, but that can be offset by 20% of bookings in cash.
Sure. So I understand that better now. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So are you thinking 6 months from when you return, or
Yeah.
6 months out of every year, and the months will be predetermined or to be determined?
I was thinking 6 months consistently, and then we can renegotiate it.
Okay.
Because
So
honestly,
say February through July or August next year.
yes, 6 months either way, either side of any kind of calendar is going to include some of your high season.
Mm-hmm.
As I say, I'm sensitive to that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also willing to, we're talking about a consultant thing here, and I'm also willing to, help out in little tiny non-responsible ways, because I will have the background.
Right.
So there's many ways that I can contribute while we're relocating back.
Okay.
So
what I think I'd like to suggest is, I don't think that we would have any issue with you and your partner staying, especially the 6 months consecutive after you come back from your travel, if you're interested in doing that. I think moving forward, what I'd like to suggest is after the initial 6 months is complete, that we have another negotiation about what the future looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I'm mindful that you might be here 6 months, or even have the possibility of doing that. And if you're in the location, that might be exactly what you're looking for. It might not be enough separation for you. So I kind of want to leave that open, because if
absolutely,
you're here,
it's exactly why I said 6 months.
Yeah.
It may be that it makes me insane to watch somebody else running my baby.
Right, exactly. And the guests will always be asking you, because it's clear that you have a well-established relationship with all of your guests anyway.
Exactly.
So I think the initial 6 months is not an issue for me. So we would not need to have a payment for you to be able to stay here in one room. We can decide on that, when we get into the actual weeds of the.
Absolutely. I think that's way down the road. But that definitely offsets some costs for us.
So then I think what I would like to offer, if you wanted to consider the interior consulting position on a full-time basis, I would offer you $75,000 a year.
That probably won't quite make exactly what we're talking about, but yet I'm not going to know that until you tell me what you're going to pay for the property itself.
Right. So maybe I need to back up just one step and ask, when you speak about 20% of the bookings of the Rose Garden, is that it? Is it 20% of the Rose Garden or 20% of the bookings of the inn?
No, it's 20% of the Rose Garden, because the business meetings and seminars and things like that, if you look at the books, you'll see that it's a much higher rate than it is for rooms being stayed, because we're basically talking corporate. And so we're able to put a per head charge on that. It's just a very different kind of structure.
I see. So do you have a number that you would feel comfortable sharing with me for what the 20% represents?
I can't really do that because it's theoretical. And you kind of surprised me today, so I don't really have all those numbers sitting right in front of me.
Sure.
Again, we're trying to put together a package, and so I'm just looking at pieces of the package.
Sure.
It may be that what you offer me as the minimum price on the property is high enough that we don't even have to discuss that. Or if it's perhaps too low, we fold that in so that we're talking 20%, we're talking the monthly, and we're talking the job along with the bottom line. Because I'm looking for a number that adds up.
Right.
Again, I realize I'm kind of pushing you, and you showed up so graciously on my lawn, but I need to know what that bottom line number is for the property, because that tells me what the other pieces are going to be.
Sure. So So what I was thinking, if we were to include the stay in the room for free and the interior design consultancy position, and maybe that salary still needs to be negotiated a little bit, was I would start probably actually around 800,000, in part because we do know that we're going to have to do some renovation work to the utilities, not that they're not up to code, but just knowing what we might want to improve on. Also, the steam system, while it's perfectly fine right now, is something that we would want to invest in and modernize a little bit more. So I need to include a couple of items like that in the overall base offer.
Okay. Well, given that I started at 1.1 million, that's considerably different. You know, if the consulting job, you said 75, if you can bring that consulting up to approximately 100 and keep in there both the monthly room and the 20% of bookings, we can get closer to the number that I have to have. You know, is that a direction? I mean, is 100,000 for a full-time employee with my background that's only making your ends better? Does that seem unreasonable to you? You know your.
No, I think the salary negotiation is definitely open for consideration. I would be able to increase that by a bit. What I can't do is suggest that we would enter into a partnership with you for future revenue.
Oh, believe me, I don't want a partnership at all.
Okay.
You know, the 20% of bookings, as far as I'm concerned, because of things like the furniture and my expertise at that and being on site for 6 months, that's only to your advantage. And I noticed that a third person has come to our porch.
Yeah, I feel like we're so close. Can we talk for like 3 more minutes?
You absolutely can.
Okay.
Are you okay with that, Cynthia? I want to see how this plays out.
So close.
I feel like technical difficulties aside, let's do this.
Well, considering I threw us for a loop in the beginning.
Okay.
So, you know, if we can look at, you're saying 800, if the job, if you could tell me with some degree of surety that I can have that position after I do my traveling for 100 a year, that we're getting much, much closer to the number that I have to have. You know, we have a choice here. You can come up to, say, 859 and not worry about the monthly place and the 20% of bookings, or we can keep the 20% and the monthly in there and say you come up to 825.
So I need to better understand what the 20% of bookings looks like. I think I'm still a little unclear about how that changes hands.
Let's say on average, the seminars are approximately 50 to 25, or let's say 25, including meals and everything else that we offer. So 20% of that would be 500. Would be 500 per, be 5,000 per booking. You know, if we average 3 or 4 of those a month, that's a substantial amount of money. So, you know, again, I'm just trying to offset one with the other. You know, the profit on the seminars is huge, as you'll see when you look at the books.
So I'm not sure that I'm actually being clear. Let me just look back at my notes for 1 second.
I'm making this up. It's not
okay. Because I actually, what do I know?
Not much. Nor do I.
So I do understand. I think maybe a partner of mine had spoken with your partner, because we were under the impression that sales revenues for the Rose Garden facilities tallied about 120,000 last year.
Yes, that's why it's just starting, and you know, the bookings that are coming in, because we've done such a good job with that and we have such a solid reputation, we're becoming a destination, and that's one of the things that we've been pursuing in our marketing, is really driving that seminar business forward, because honestly, it's, in a way, it's less stressful.
Sure. Yeah, I understand. You have to change the sheets if somebody's using a tablecloth, right?
But exactly. Everybody comes in and then they leave.
Right.
I like that. So, you know, that's why I say it's 20% of the potential. That's the risk I'm willing to take. I'm saying to you, we're building this business. We're trying really hard to promote it. We're seeing extraordinary growth in it. And so that's the risk that I'm willing to take with you, is that I'm willing to give you, you know, I'm willing to say that is a little risky, and I have to assume that you're going to do your best with that business because it's in your best interest as well.
Sure. So Cynthia, I think I'm still not being clear to you when you talk about the 20%. I'm not clear if you're suggesting that you would receive that, or if you just need a compensation for that amount. Does that make sense?
You're welcome to look at it either way. If you book a seminar for $25,000, I want 20% of that.
Right. And so what I'm not clear on is how you would expect to receive that, because I mentioned that I'm not in a position to create a contract with you.
No, that would be, it would be sort of, for lack of a better word, an accountant would be able to come up with this. That it'll almost be like a consultant fee. I have no intention of having my fingers in the business. So how you drive that is up to you, and your accountant may say 20% with a cap to here, or, you know, those are some of the tweaky little details.
So what if we were to, I'm not sure if you would be open to this, because it sounds like you do have a lot of interest in the interior design business and you're open to working full time. Mm-hmm. But what if you worked 3/4 time but earned more of a full-time salary?
Work less, earn more? I don't think that's a problem, because it's really about how much I'm earning. So again,
yes, it sounds like your ultimate goal is to make sure that you can cover your future expenses.
Exactly. So if you can raise your offer to $825, you can guarantee me a salary of $100,000, and either the 20% or the monthly, the place, you know, giving me a place to live. We're a whole lot closer to where we are, but it would have to be structured that way: 800 to 825, 100 in salary, and then the rest of the money that I need has to come from one of those two sources. It has to be either a place to live or 20% of the booking.
Say that last piece one more time. I
would need between 800 and 825 for the property. I would need a salary of 100. Whether that's full-time or part-time, that would be negotiable. And then I need a percentage of the bookings or the place to live, because those two things offset other costs for me of what the amounts that I need and that I feel I'm entitled to, because this is such a quality property.
Right. So I think for us moving forward, we would continue to discuss you being able to stay at the property versus calculating 20% of monthly revenue. That's not something that we would want to enter into. However, understanding when you would be able to stay at the inn and for how long, that's something that is much more flexible for our group.
So can you come up to the 825?
Yeah. So we have the range of 8 to 825. We have the 100,000 that you would potentially earn for your consultancy position. Mm-hmm. And we would have 6 months, say maximum, maybe an occasional weekend that we can work out in the details of the understanding for the lodging. And in lieu of the 20% of monthly revenue calculations, you would be able to stay at the inn for the 6 months. And then moving forward, we would renegotiate after those 6 months.
Renegotiate that right. So 800, I'm just confirming, 825, somewhere between 800 and 825, 100,000 salary, and negotiating my living expenses for 6 months after I return from my trip.
Sure, and by living expenses, without getting stuck too far into the details, you're talking about a room, maybe the breakfast and 1 meal a day aside from that.
Yes, exactly. It'd just be the same as a guest.
We're not throwing in cars. We're not going to,
well, everything can be negotiated.
Yes, but isn't that true?
In reality, no.
Yes, so I think that's amenable to us. I think, you know, if you wanted to consider an offer, would you accept 820 and moving forward with the rest, with the consultancy position and also the 6-month stay?
I am firmer at 825 because it just gives me that little bit extra to go back to my partner with and say, we're covered, we're good, we can do this. If you want to go back to your powers at 825 and see what they say about that, and then say in a week, you know, we stay in touch and we finalize this on those details, that gives you an opportunity to also confirm that salary.
No, I think I'm okay. I'm you know, half of the powers that be. So if you are comfortable with it, we can sort of draft up a draft agreement here today.
I'm happy to have a draft. You know, I as much as you have that power, I want to make sure that I'm not going to agree to anything flat out, signed, sealed, delivered, drop of blood today. I have to run it by
no bleeding is necessary.
But if we're at 825 and 100 and the room to live, I think we have probably 90% of the agreement that we need.
Great.
Does that sound good to you?
Sounds good.
Great. Would you like another lunch?
Yes.
All right, let's go do it.
Okay, good work. So let's see, 51 minutes, a little bit longer, but you.
Nope.
You
Rob,
just muted yourself, Rob.
Yeah, you went away, Rob.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's much better.
Just very touchy mouse pad. Okay, so you did really well. It took 51 minutes, so you went a little long, but as the two of you sensed, as you were narrowing down to the 40 minutes, you were close. So I appreciate that you asked for more time. So usually at the end of these, I will want to do a debrief. But as I was preparing for this exercise, I was reminded that your paper this week is a debrief. And so it would not be appropriate for us to have a debrief and then make you write a debrief.
I'm okay with you just doing a verbal one instead.
But the negotiation.
Michelle, if I could offer it to everyone, I in fact would do it that way. But,
I'm okay with that.
right. Yeah, that's the problem. So I will leave it to you. Here's what will happen when the video, and actually let me stop the recording.